Hi, welcome to another episode of the Veterans Corner. My name is Chuck Wooden, and I'll be your host. We have a very special guest here with us, actually again. You were here with us not too long ago.
Yes.
Gerry, welcome to have you back.
Thanks, Joe.
Gerry Wright. Gerry, he's got a long series of descriptions. It's one of those nights. I'll get it out. I swear to God, I will. Gerry's he's a retired first sergeant from the United States Army. He served with the 19th Combat Engineers from 1969 to 1970 in Vietnam. He is an Agent Orange survivor. He was inducted into the Connecticut Veterans Hall of Fame in 2014. And for those that don't know, that's a big accomplishment, and it's a massive honor.
It is.
Congratulations on that. He's also a member of the following VSOs, Veteran Service Organizations, American Legion, VFW, DAV. He's life members of those, and also the Vietnam Veterans of America, right?
Yes.
Yeah. Once again, welcome back. It's great to have you. We had a great conversation the last time you were here on the topic of Agent Orange, and we had talked about you coming back for a doubleheader. Actually, you went on a trip out
across the United States.
Yeah, it was like 32 states or something like that, bringing the awareness of Agent Orange to veterans and everyone else out there. You made this trip on a motorcycle.
Well, the reason for the motorcycle, and I knew you were going to ask me that next, was that it draws attention. I could have done this on my nice new GMC truck, but no, I decided to ride a motorcycle in 100-degree temperatures and rain, and from 78 degrees to 41 in 20 minutes going through Oregon and California and things like that. But the whole idea of it was that I wanted an orange motorcycle, and I wanted a trailer that said "Sprayed to Betrayed." I was killed in Vietnam. I haven't died yet, and it's all lettered that way. Yeah. So when I pulled into a truck stop or to a rest area, it would actually draw people into me, rather than me trying to approach them and to get a petition signed. That was the whole object of the trip, was to get as many signatures on a petition that Congressman Courtney and I and American Legion drew up prior to my trip. Yeah. And it worked out excellent. I picked up over 3,000 names on the trip. We're at about, this afternoon, 4,552 names already.
Wow. I know the last time you were here, you were somewhere around 2,000?
Yeah, about 2,000.
Yeah. So, I mean, obviously it's something that is near and dear to many people's hearts.
Well, that and the petition was dropped off to the Legion Post and the VFWs across the country, and people like yourself would take one and go to work and have people sign it and mail it back to me. So they're still coming in. Yeah. The names are still coming in. And the reason for doing that is that when I have a chance to go to Congress and testify, and I'm hoping to do that after the elections, is that I can have a stack of signatures. Yeah. Look at all these people that agree with what's going on with what we need to do.
Yeah, it's I think we all know the reason for this, but maybe you can elaborate more. I mean, the reason for traveling around the U.S. I mean, obviously it was to bring awareness to get the support for the bills.
Well, the bill actually reads, I'm going to make it very simple, is that in 1991, Congress decided that out of the 14 diseases we can have from Agent Orange, 3 of those have end dates. And end dates are 1 year of separation and a 10% disability. But we didn't hear about it for 8 years. Yeah. So how can they put an end date on an illness? And that's what really intrigued me, was to get out there and show this to people, because people didn't realize that had happened. A lot of veterans didn't realize that had happened. And we can eliminate those end dates with chloracne, neuropathy, skin blistering. Then we can be treated, and we can receive a disability if needed.
Yeah. I mean, there's a lot of times it's just the changes there in the fine print, and it flies under the radar of everyone.
We forget.
Yeah.
We really do forget.
It's I remember us talking, and you had said something about you went to like 32 states. I mean, what routes did you take, and what states did you actually visit?
Well, from here into New York to Pennsylvania, into North Carolina, down through Boone, Maggie Valley, Georgia, all the way to Key West. And my point was to travel the four corners of the United States. And I've already been to Alaska previous to this. So I have traveled to all four corners. And to meet people along the way and sort of get their opinion, especially veterans. What do you think about the VA? Is the VA taking care of you? Are you affected by Agent Orange? And I can only remember one man out in Deadwood, South Dakota, that said he didn't know anybody that had or had passed away from Agent Orange. Everybody else has. It's either a widow or a grandson or granddaughter that said, yeah, my grandfather died from Agent Orange. You know, it's a real tough topic.
Yeah.
Because we were exposed, and it is the most powerful dioxin known to man. Agent Orange, Agent Blue, Agent White, Agent Purple. And they would mix it with diesel fuel, 50-50, and when they'd spray it on the plants and the jungle grass, everything would die. Well, you mix with diesel fuel, that causes cancer.
Yeah.
So we were sprayed by our own people.
Yeah, you know, you had mentioned the diesel fuel, and just recently I had the honor of talking to a daughter of someone that was in the Blue Water Navy, and also another veteran, and he was telling me about whenever you would drink the water on the ship, you would taste the diesel fuel.
Oh, of course. I wasn't on a ship, I didn't taste it,
yeah.
But I run a bulldozer and smelt the fumes that coming off the bulldozer as we would go out. See, we would spray around our compound, and I had pictures of the truck I sprayed off of, and then something like 2 days everything would die.
Yeah.
So then we would go out with bulldozers and clean it. Well, then it was dry, it was dead, and we would be breathing that dust that was coming back up off the plants.
And that's not something that's not organic. It doesn't dissipate. It stays there. It
stays in the ground. Gosh, I've been reading up on it more and more lately of the Vietnamese people that are still suffering from this. Second, third generations, the kids are born without limbs, without hands, without eyes, and I have pictures of a helicopter would actually pick up 55-gallon drums of Agent Orange out and drop it into the Gulf, and then the gunships would shoot them to sink them. And they had Agent Orange in them.
Yeah.
And the fishermen are out there fishing, and they're grabbing all the fish and bringing it in, and they're feeding their families, and they're becoming contaminated from it.
Yeah, I mean, and obviously our sailors who were out there, I mean, they got the decel, the water plants to take the salt out. I always get stuck on that word.
Yep.
Since I started to show off a little rough, I'm not going to try to say that word today. You know, we had the plants on board where it's make the water drinkable.
Right.
And I mean, you're bathing in that, you're drinking it, you're cooking in it. I mean, it was all out there.
Yep. So we would draw the water from the Bong Song River and put it in our tankers. I have pictures of that. Yep. Take it back to our compound, put it in Lister bags, hang them up, and stand under it and shower.
Yeah.
And they said, well, you have to do boots on the ground. Not necessarily.
No.
You know, and it's when you spray, like down along the Ho Chi Minh Trail, up around Da Nang area, in that area that was sprayed very heavily, there was the mountain areas. And where does the water go? Eventually back into the streams. Into the streams, and then it eventually goes back into the Red China Sea. Yep.
I know we were talking the last time about the wildlife. The wildlife was greatly affected.
Well, we would shoot deer over there. There was a lot of deer, and we would shoot them. We'd barbecue them. We'd eat them. So we'd eat the food. We'd eat the bananas. We'd eat the coconuts.
So it wasn't just the water. It was people. You were getting exposed to this just about every time you turned around.
Every time we turned around. Yep. But the trip across the country, Chuck, was really great. It was from from Key West to Mobile, Alabama to Texas, and up in Ennis, Texas is an Agent Orange monument. And I went to see that. And my trip became spiritual because I didn't use GPS. I didn't use land nav, I used the map. And I would look at the map in the morning, sip on my coffee and say, okay, I need to go here. How am I going to get there?
The old-fashioned way.
And something would just tell me, go that way. And one of the stories I like to really tell was when I was looking to go to Flagstaff. Should I go through Sedona or should I go up here and cut off on Route 40? I'll go up on Route 40. And I got almost up to Route 40 and I saw a sign that said American Legion. So I turned around, went back in, and there's a deuce and a half with a high school band playing music from the 60s. And I said, well, what's going on here? He said, well, in about 15 minutes, there's 500 motorcycles going to roll in here that are going to Rolling Thunder for Memorial Weekend. Wow. And I sat there for 3.5 hours and watched sheriffs and state police escort in 500 motorcycles. They fed them and had them out of there in 3.5 hours on their way to Washington. Why did I go there?
It was meant to be.
Meant to be. And then when I got to Clovis, New Mexico, I just happened to saw a Legion post, stopped, went in, got some signatures, and they said, come back at 5 o'clock, there'll be more people here. It was a stop for a run for the fallen. And they were all there with their bus, with their people. I bought a t-shirt from them. So why did I stop there?
It was meant to be.
Why did I stop in Gillette, Wyoming on the way back and was gassing up, and a guy come over and he goes, what are you doing? Told him what I was doing with the Agent Orange. And he signed a petition and he goes, I want to bless you and I want to bless your bike. And he did, handed me his card and he left. I looked at the card, he's the state coordinator for the Christian Motorcycle Group. And we're corresponding today. That's the nice part about the trip, is that not only did I present myself with a petition, but that we're still in touch today, and they're following what we're doing with the House bill and the Senate bill and things like this. So they would go to their congressman and senator and say, hey, I have met this guy from Connecticut, and he's very serious about what he's doing. He's on a mission, and we want to support him. And I have followers all over the United States like that.
Friends. You made new friends.
For life.
Yeah,
I mean, I never knew there was a group called the Point Man Ministries.
Yeah.
And I met them in Coos Bay, Oregon. It was just, and we're still corresponding today, and they're working with their people to get behind on what we're doing here as well. The Point Man Ministries are all military, or they're all former military. And they work with PTSDs, they work with veterans and help them with health care and like that. And their closest chapter to here is Pennsylvania. But they have them from Pennsylvania all the way to Oregon.
That's a group I've never heard of.
Yep, excellent group, excellent. But
what were some of the reactions from the folks along the route? From the veterans and their families. Obviously, a warm welcome to a lot of your questions and stuff like that.
Well, one of the things that really got me was when I got into Mobile, Alabama, and I went to the Welcome Center, and the fine lady behind the counter says, well, welcome to Alabama. Are you traveling through? Are you going to stay a while? I said, well, I don't know yet. I'm on a mission for Agent Orange. And she let come right out of the over the counter, grabbed my hand and said, my husband passed away from Agent Orange 2 years ago. And I ended up spending 3 days in Alabama. I went to the Legion Riders Romp. I met a lot of veterans down there. And there's another story with a canine dog. Can I tell you that one?
Absolutely.
I got back to the motel room that night, and the lady behind the counter, now I'm well known in the hotel, it seems like, she's waving this card. She said, there's a fellow here who wants to talk to you. It's 10 o'clock at night. So I got his card. He's a state captain for the Patriot Guard in the state of Texas. And they're escorting up a container of ashes from a canine dog. Apparently there's a fellow in Mobile that was a dog tracker in Vietnam. And all the dogs there at that time were euthanized. They couldn't bring them home. Well, now you can adopt a dog from Iraq and Afghanistan. And Lloyd adopted Hank. And Hank, he had for 13 years passed away. Well, in Mobile, by the USS Alabama, is a monument to the canine dogs. And it's the first time ever that a dog had been buried there. And I got to witness that. How come? Why did I spend 3 days there? Yeah. And the whole trip was like that. It was just, as I talk to veterans, they think the service at the VA is okay, but the VSOs and the people in the hospitals, the doctors, don't really want to talk about Agent Orange. And they've got Parkinson's, they've got ALS, they've got neuropathy, they can't feel their feet, they got hypertension. If a lot of their diseases or their illnesses aren't related in the families. It doesn't come from anywhere from their father or the mother.
It's not hereditary.
It's not hereditary. It's just all of a sudden, and then I got really talking to some of them that opened up to me about their children that are born with, one guy told me he had a boy and a girl, their hearts were born outside their bodies. Never in their whole life, in their history, has that ever happened before. Another guy said his daughter has stomach cancer and stomach problems in their 20s. And they feel so bad. They almost cry when they're talking to me, and they feel so bad that not only because I can handle my illness, but now I passed it on to my kids.
Yeah. Not even realizing it.
Not even realizing it. And it's passed down from 2 to 3 generations, and it's making them very sad. That, we're kind of getting off of what I'm talking about, but that kind of links into PTSD, Chuck.
Yeah. I actually, it's funny you should say that, because that was one of the questions that I was going to ask you about.
Yep.
How does that relate to the veterans, who have PTSD, and to have this on top of that, it's got to really, unfortunately, enhance the PTSD.
Well, we not only live with the horrors of war if we were subject to that, but we live with the illnesses and the aches and pains from Agent Orange, and constantly you're thinking about Vietnam every day.
Yeah.
And I hooked up with a group it's called Mission 22. You can go to mission22.com and talk to Mary Kate Storm. I talked to her again today. Right now, the highest suicide rate, they say, is around 22.9 a day, 21.9 a day. And the highest is the Vietnam vet.
Yeah.
Is committing suicide today more than anybody else.
Something disturbing, since we got into this topic, and I know this is something we're going to do in the future as far as a show, is the suicides and the 22 a day. Yeah. That's actually, from what I'm hearing from reliable sources, is that number is actually higher than that. It doesn't include certain groups.
Right.
I think the state of Texas does not include a lot of those suicides into their numbers. And I think from what I was told by one of our past guests, is that the numbers from the National Guard are not incorporated into that. And right now, that's a major number of our veterans who are overseas.
Yeah, I think it's like 40 or 50% of our troops that are overseas. Yeah, and here in
National
Connecticut,
Guard.
we're going to have close to 500 over there again by Christmas.
Yeah. So I mean, there's I think. Don't quote me on this. I don't know. I don't have the facts in front of me, but from what I've heard from other guests and other sources, that number is actually higher than the 22.
It's pretty sad.
It is. It is. And nationwide, I think the overall a day for all people is like 35 to 40 a day.
Wow.
And that's from every corner of the country.
Yep.
I know we'll touch base on Mission 22 in the next show.
Okay.
We do, because I know that's something that's something that definitely needs to be covered. And I know we're going to cover that in a lot more detail in upcoming shows. But as far as we had touched on the children, it being passed down, from the parents who served in Vietnam, who were exposed to these dioxins. As far as the VA, are they doing anything to help the children who are coming down or showing effects of the Agent Orange?
I started reading that this afternoon, believe it or not, and I don't see a lot of it. No.
Yeah.
They're actually doing very good as far as the suicide line, the hotlines you can call in and like this. We'll talk about that later. Yeah. But as far as the kids go, I don't think so. I really don't see that. I don't see a program set up that if you have, there's a sign in the VA that says if you were exposed to Agent Orange and your kids are coming down with something, can you please have a clinic or somebody to talk to? I don't see it at all.
That's something obviously we need to enhance.
Yes, we do.
The treatment for them. I mean, it's something that's real. Obviously, this is not a chemical that just disperses and goes away.
We know that, but the people in power don't seem to agree to that.
Yeah.
And that's what we're up against. We're not only up against the politicians, I think are more, they understand it more than the whole system in the VA does. The VA doesn't, I don't think, totally understands it.
Yeah. Yeah, we can look at some issues that could be more cynical and as far as why they're not doing it, but the fact is that they're not.
Right.
It's, as all of our shows, they all go by pretty fast. We fortunately we are having a 2-part series on all this. And like I said, it's great to have you back. But real fast, if you can recap just one thing that sticks out in your mind about the trip. Mm-hmm. What was the most memorable part of your trip?
Memorable part for me was when I got into Coos Bay, Oregon. My sister set me up with like 6 Legion posts and VFW posts to talk to. And the American Legion post in Reedsport, Oregon, asked me to ride in the Memorial Day Parade. And the commander said, you can ride your trike and trailer in the parade as long as my wife rides on the back of the trike because she knows everybody in town.
Yeah.
And then my next call was to my wife to let her know that the nice little brunette that's sitting behind me is the commander's wife and everything's cool. And I got to speak at the memorial service there in town. And they called me back up on stage and they presented me with the Quilt of Valor. And I really didn't know what that was. It was made by these ladies in town. They had sold my name, they dated it in the quilt, and they covered you with the quilt. And the lady looked at me and she says, now don't you put that in your trunk or hang it on the wall. You use it. A blanket warms the body, a quilt warms the soul.
Nice quote.
And I couldn't hardly breathe to think that I was 3,000 miles away and to be honored like that. Yeah. I thought that was really nice.
It's definitely, I can see why that was one of your most memorable. Yeah. I'm sure you had a lot of them, but that certainly is the one that stands out. Yeah. We're going to talk about a multitude of things in the next show.
Okay.
And, it's great to have you back. I know the first show was enlightening as far as, it's not just Agent Orange. There was different colors. There was a bunch of different colors.
Oh, yes.
And all of us out here, we only hear of Agent Orange. There was purple, white. There was a whole bunch of them.
Yep.
And that's something that the general public doesn't really realize. But we'll talk about a lot of that in the next show. Gerry, it was great to have you.
Thanks, Jack.
That's about, one of the things I'd really like to do before we close out is thank our sponsors. Without our sponsors, some of the basics of this show we couldn't have. The American Legion Post 209 in Forestville. They've really stepped up to help this show. We also have a gal by the name of Pam Shea. She was very generous for her donations for the show, mugs and stuff like that. So with that being said, I want to thank the sponsors. want to thank you, the viewers. That's about all the time we have. Once again, thank you for being here. I'm Chuck Wooden. See you next time on the Veterans Corner. Good night.